Welcome back, Knuckleheads. I'm Lupine Fiasco, and this is your daily FaB gameplay. For anyone who's new to the channel, welcome. What we do here is review replays of games that I played on the Talishar client days or weeks ago, after enough time has passed that I lose my bias and can more objectively judge the quality of my play. I'll talk through turn cycles and give my thoughts on the line I would take now, compared to the line I took then at the time of recording. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our gameplay in the future to take down paper events like the ongoing ProQuest Season 5 and, most importantly, walk away with that shiny, shiny cardboard. If you would like to check out the list I'm playing here or try it for yourself on Talishar, there is a FaB deck link available in the video description below. While they're down there, if you have not already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. A YouTube subscription is the best free way to support me and to make sure that you see daily FaB gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. The best paid way to support me is through Patreon, and a Patreon link is also in the video description. A Patreon subscription will get you access to the DFG Discord and shiny cardboard Talishar card back. At higher tiers, your name will appear in every DFG video. You'll get bonus DFG content every week. There are even more benefits coming down the pipeline. Daily FaB gameplay will always be free 5 days a week, so for those who can afford to patronize me, I truly appreciate it. Now, let's talk about our sideboard and about our game plan. Olympia is a bit of a weird one right now. Let's be honest, you're not going to run into this too often. We have just seen spoilers within the last few days for Olympia support coming in Mistveil expansion slots that really give the hero an identity that he currently doesn't have. To that effect, for now, we are treating Olympia like Dorinthia. We're expecting him to play hatchets. We're expecting him to try and execute that plan of Hatchet, Blade Runner, Hatchet, or Hatchet, Blade Runner, Hit and Run, Hatchet, Hatchet. Except that Olympia doesn't have Dorinthia's effect. So the Hit and Run maybe leads to Command and Conquer. Wagering will be a part of this, but overall, simplify this for yourself. There are enough heroes and matchups to remember that for the most part, Olympia is Dorinthia. As such, we are going to choose to go second. This is a little contentious too. I've played against enough warriors recently that can swing that hatchet turn 1, play a Blade Runner, get some damage in, make a Vigor with Grains of Blood spill. Overall, this is a tough one to evaluate as well, and that is just the nature of warrior right now. But I think going second is correct. We can block on turn 0 and present attacks on turn 1 to try and take tempo away from warrior. At the very least, going second as opposed to first means that warrior has one less turn to get value out of Valiant Dynamo. Because we are treating this like Dorinthia, we are using our Hatchet sideboard. What that means is we are bringing in our warrior package, which are our Clashes, our Yellow Wild Rides, and our Massacres. The idea being that we want to set up very large, very disruptive Blood Rush Bellow turns. Our best Blood Rush Bellows are going to go 3 lengths wide, and that is going to involve a Wild Ride or a Pulping, a Mandible Claw, and a finisher, something like a Pack Hunt or maybe even a Command and Conquer. Agility opens that up quite a bit as it turns Bare Fangs into a starter. Clashes are fairly self-explanatory as warrior does not run many, if any, attack actions, so if you block with a clash, 99% of the time you will win it. That means we get agility, or in the case of the most recent version of this list, one of Clash of Might. Talking more about what isn't in this list is going to be interesting, as we are cutting Swing Big and Send Packing, 2 very strong cards. Send Packing, I have found, is extremely clunky against Warrior because of how well they block. When Warrior can give a a single card from hand, Valiant Dynamo, and a 2-block piece of equipment to block out your send packing. Send packing becomes a lot worse. Alternatively, they can give 2 cards from hand. Alternatively, they can give Balance of Justice, Grains of Bloodspill, and Brave Forge Bracers. And if send packing's effect is not forcing Warrior to do anything they don't already want to do, which in many cases is block with 2-3 blocks from hand, then it is just a 3 for 6, and that's very bad. Swing Big is a lot more interesting, and it took me a while to come around on this, because 2 for 8 is so strong. But speaking to how well Warrior blocks, they can give 2 cards from hand and a 2-block piece of equipment, or a 3-block from hand, Dynamo, and a Sink Below or Fate Foreseen to block out the Swing Big and get a Quicken. And if we are giving them a Quicken, we might have otherwise caught them with a non-functional hand that doesn't have Blade Runner or Hit and Run, or maybe they had a Hit and Run that they would have wanted to pitch, but instead needed to play to give their first Hatchet Go Again, and now we have given them Go Again on our own. So we are cutting Swing Big because of how well it plays into the Warrior game plan. I did touch on our game plan a bit already, but we are trying to set up big Blood Rush Bellows turns where we go 3 chain links wide. Generally, we want to be sending 3 chain links every turn, and that starts with Wild Ride Pulping, a Mandible Claw, and then a finisher like a Command and Conquer or Bare Fangs. Ideally, we are pitching our Massacres for the second cycle to try and line up with Pulpings, Wild Rides, or Blood Rush Bellows. Pack Hunts are kind of the same way because Intimidate is so strong at getting those extra few points of damage against Warrior. As far as how to combat what they are doing, we're just playing mid-range when it's appropriate. We'd like to convert our hands to aggro as much as possible, but if you don't have that Go Again, blocking for 6 and sending 2 for 8 with Bare Fangs or 2 for 6 with Command and Conquer is just fine as well. Try to Arsenal Go Again, protect it against Command and Conquers, make sure that you're getting 3 chain links a turn as much as possible, and you should be able to pick up the win. Let's submit deck and see what that looks like. Being on the draw here looks really good. We will block where possible, otherwise we are just going to discard this Agile Windup and make an Agility. Blocking with Pound Town here seems like the ideal solution. Blocking with Command and Conquer makes a little more sense when you consider that we don't want Warrior to get immediate value out of their 3-block cards or their equipment. At the same time, Command and Conquer is still really strong. And if we can even just lead with it, that is going to get blocks out of Warrior and perhaps open the door for more damage later. At the same time, we are trying to hold on to this Massacre so that we can push free damage later in the game. So I don't necessarily hate this block. My recent ProQuest experience has taught me that I should not be so quick to throw away my power cards on defense early. So while it does stink to give up that Command and Conquer, considering that we are intending to have Agility for the next turn, holding on to Massacre is a solid plan as well. This is an easy block on the second Hatchet, and we will allow Olympia to move to end. We'll create our Agility and see what we draw into in our opening hand. This is a pretty simple turn. We could Smash Instinct, Claw by pitching Wild Ride. We could also Wild Ride, pitch a blue, hope that we do not discard our Massacre. If we do discard the Massacre, we're hoping that we drew into another 2 for 6. In the interest of creating a Might token, I do like sending Wild Ride more than I like sending Smash Instinct. That said, it is totally defensible to send Smash Instinct. I don't think I even picked up on that line during this game, but in the interest of maximizing damage and getting our Might token, I want to send Wild Ride. But this is an interesting line. I would have been interested to see how this game went had I played out the Smash Instinct instead. And we do get rather lucky that we keep both a blue and our Massacre, and we are going to play that Massacre this turn, expecting that we are going to push a little damage onto Olympia. Massacre here coming in for 8 will intimidate one of Olympia's cards. If he does block with these 2 cards and takes 2, then we at least know the maximum amount of damage his turn can deal. With 2 cards, it is a little more difficult, but we are still pushing 4, and we do have that Might token for our turn here. We can just take the first hatchet. We're expecting that Olympia is going to attack with second hatchet for 3 and arsenal this card in hand. That's going to play very well with our Clash of Agility, which will come out to block here. We win the Clash, we see a Spoils of War, and we see a second Clash on top of our deck. That does make this turn a little awkward. Playing Runner does refresh our agility, but we also know that we had Clash of Agility on top of our deck. I still think this is correct. Knowing that we are going to arsenal a Wild Ride, agility looks a lot less impressive. At the same time, if we can hold on to a blue and a Bear Fangs, then we still get to present maximum damage on our next turn with Mandible Claw and hold on to Wild Ride. Really, we're playing Runner because there isn't a better line. If we play our Wild Ride by pitching our Beast Within, then draw and discard our Clash of Agility, we're holding on to a Runner with no guaranteed agility, and it may just rot in our arsenal. Catching Olympia with a defense reaction, that's more or less par for the course, but we do feel pretty good about potentially having intimidated that out of their hand with our Massacre. Olympia coming with Spoils of War is honestly not anything we need to care about. Yes, Olympia can make copper. Olympia is playing cash in. We've already seen one. Very likely that Olympia is playing more, but considering that Olympia has the prized Gallia, I'm not expecting to be able to keep him off of cash-in. He is going to get his cash-in value, so we can evaluate this hand and see if maybe we just take damage here. Hatchet for 4 seems totally fine to take regardless of what our follow-up blocking is or isn't. If we are going to block, we want to block the second hatchet. We would block with Clash and Apex Bonebreaker. That gets us our Bonebreaker value to make a Might. And on our turn, we probably are playing Pulping, hoping to draw into a 2 for 6 and discard the other blue in our hand. But there's definitely a line where we just don't block anything and crack back with a pretty solid 3-link chain, potentially 4 based on how our draws and discards go. Here we do have second hatchet just for 4. We can decide if we want to overblock to get our Might value from Apex Bonebreaker. We would also prevent Olympia from making a second Vigor. The downside of this is that our turn looks a lot weaker. If we kept 5 cards, we could open with Wild Ride and have a very good shot at sending Claw 2 for 6. Going to 30 here is also not the worst thing in the world, but I believe that we are giving appropriate value to Grains and to cash in by just blocking for 5. It's a little unfortunate that we already have our agility, so we aren't getting full value from Clash, but I think we are keeping Olympia off of his game plan enough by blocking this out. Here we keep 2 reds and a blue, so I'm expecting that this is going to be Wild Ride from Arsenal. Pulping here I don't particularly agree with, especially based on how this came out. I think Wild Ride from Arsenal would have been a much better decision. We still have our Wild Ride, but we would have had a 2 for 6 in hand. So we would have had a better option to claw 2 for 6. I suppose we'll get to do that anyway, so it isn't a huge problem. It always feels a little unfortunate when your turn is go again, claw, go again. We only have 9 quote-unquote natural go again in the deck between 3 pulpings and 6 wild rides. So it's always kind of tragic to be sending them just for damage at the end of a turn. We decide to discard our windup instead. I think this is a value loss. It's kind of going to pay off here as we get to CNC for 7 go again, then Wild Ride, potentially following up with a 2 for 6. But I would not have hated just sending Wild Ride there for damage. We will take 2 from this hatchet. For the most part, we're never blocking the first hatchet. We are always just preparing for Blade Runner Hatchet for 5, or even just playing around Glint the Quicksilver on the first hatchet so that we are not enabling Reprise. Here we do want to lead with that Command and Conquer. We do want to keep our Riled Up, which potentially attacks for 6, and our Wind Up, which discards for Might and Agility. What do I like doing here? I believe I do like Wild Ride. We are hoping to draw into a 2 for 6, which we do, but then we immediately discard it. Alternatively, we just claw at the end of this turn, discard our windup to continue our streak of agility tokens. And we're still putting pressure on Olympia. Maybe Olympia blocks with this card in hand and just sends Hatchet. We are expecting that Olympia is holding on to a blue and is going to get a 1-card 5. But we're totally happy to take 5 damage if it means converting a 4-card hand. Here, pretty good turn for Olympia, gaining a life off of the Heart of Fiandal and coming in with Spill Blood for a 2-card 9. Even potentially getting Grains of Bloodspill value as well. We can decide if we want to block this. I believe the answer is no. Considering that we already have our agility, so we don't need to block with Clash, we don't generate any value by doing that, and ideally we would like to just pulping, pitch a blue, discard one of these reds, draw a blue, claw 2 for 6. Plugging out the damage here is not something we really need to do when we can just get offensive value anyway. I disagree with this. We are setting ourselves up to put Go Again into Arsenal. We're hoping that we can pulping, draw something, discard it, then Arsenal this Wild Ride. In fact, that is what we do. Of course, we discard a pulping, so either way we would have had Go Again, setting up for the next turn. But I think we are happy to take a little extra damage from Olympia in order to throw more damage back. Even so, a Wild Ride in Arsenal is not the worst thing in the world. Deciding to Fleshbag here is aggressive. I don't think that this was the right call. I understand why I did it, because Olympia had a large hand and no Go Again on the hatchet. So if we can catch Olympia's only Blade Runner or only Glint or only Shift the Tide of Battle with our Fleshbag, then Olympia's turn just ends. At the same time, we have no guarantee that Olympia can use these cards. Maybe the only reason Olympia didn't block with these is that we didn't give him the opportunity. Fleshbag is really good when your warrior opponent keeps 5 cards and takes 12 damage in the process. You expect that they're setting up for something huge, and the Fleshbag keeps you alive through that turn. But in this case, we have no idea that Olympia has any follow-up to this at all. Olympia might have just been mitigating some damage. We also have 28 life, so I don't think this was the turn to use our once-in-a-game flesh bag. Looking at our hand, we can block with one of these runners. We have our tunic counter available, so we should have the resources to Wild Ride Claw Finisher. Interesting that I decided not to here when I had previously blocked with an extraneous clash, instead of keeping a potentially larger 5-card hand to have a more effective offensive turn. I think if we were going to play the mid-range game, we should have blocked here as well, and if we weren't going to play the mid-range game, then we should not have blocked earlier. Setting up for a very solid turn here, we are going to follow up with Mandible Claw and a runner. We get a little more damage if we throw Bare Fangs, but there is a very good chance that we discard our runner and draw into a crappy blue that would rot in our arsenal, so I am fine to give up a potential 2 damage on our Bare Fangs and instead put it into arsenal to set up for a future turn. We are more or less punished for that as we draw into Cast Bones, which, as you can imagine, does not play very well with our random draw discard. We are going to take 2 damage from this hatchet. Ideally looking to block with really nothing. If we could not do any blocking here, that would be pretty solid, as we get to discard Wind Up at the end of Olympia's turn, throw Beast Within for 7 with Go Again, and then Cast Bones. But if Olympia is going to wager an agility with us, and more importantly, potentially create a 3rd goal for himself, our priorities really change. Now, putting 8 in front of this hatchet is looking like a pretty good plan. We block with Wrecker Romp, Beast Within, Bonebreaker, and Scabskins. We make a Might. We get an agility from winning the clash. We then get to Mandible Claw for 5 Go Again, play Cast Bones, and continue to sit on this Bare Fangs and Arsenal. More importantly, we keep Olympia off of agility and more gold. Claw here for 5 indicates that we would love to have a flesh bag on this turn, as Olympia is clearly setting up for something huge. We unfortunately get 2 misses in our top 6, and one of those misses involves drawing another Cast Bones. We are very priced into holding on to this windup and one of our blues, because we will need to pitch blue to claw, then discard windup in resolution in order to create agility Might, and more importantly, give the claw Go Again so that we can play this Cast Bones. We might have wanted to do more blocking on this turn. I'm not thrilled about taking an extra 5 here because we put a single blue in front of this hatchet, but if we were to block this for 8, with our 2 blues and our agile windup, then we are losing out on 5 damage from our mites. 4 damage from our mites, we can't do that. So we are just going to block for 3. We are going to take 5 so that we can claw for 7, discard windup, play Cast Bones. We do know that there is a Blood Rush in the top 6 cards of our deck. We will also guaranteed have agility for our next turn, and our tunic will be at 3. So we're setting up for exactly the sort of turn we want to beat Warrior. Just the way to get there is a lot more troubling than we would like it to be. Warrior apparently sitting on another heater. Getting the Sink Below from Arsenal makes me feel a little better that we aren't going to have to deal with 5-card Warrior. 4-card Warrior is still kind of scary considering that Olympia burned through the second half of Brave Forge Bracers and getting 2 more misses in the top 6. Our deck is really committed to making this a difficult gaming experience for us. So here we have Hatchet for 4 with Go Again, very likely to have, Hatchet for 4 with Dominate, very likely to have Go Again. I would be shocked if Olympia did not have a way to give this Hatchet Go Again. What it also means is that we should not block this Hatchet in case Olympia's means of giving it Go Again is going to Quicksilver. We do not want Olympia to draw a card from Reprise. So my thought process for blocking here is, what if Olympia just has some way to blow us out? We go to 8 from this Hatchet and suddenly something happens where we can't prevent the rest of the damage and we die. But that's impossible. Olympia only has 2 cards in hand. One of those cards has to be a way to give this Hatchet Go Again. Yeah, the other card could be a Wager. 1 for 3, Wager something. And now Hatchet of Mind is coming in for 8 between its own power, 1 for 3, and Spill Blood. But then we can block that. We can put the Cast Bones in front of that. And if Olympia doesn't have that, if Olympia just arsenals its last card, well, then we get to keep a 5-card Blood Rush hand. So I don't think that blocking here is correct. I think that my reasoning for blocking here is flawed. That Olympia does not have a way to kill us from 12 in a way that we won't be able to prevent. This Hatchet for 6 we are just going to take. We'll go to 5. We do have our agility. We have a bunch of might. We want to play this Blood Rush Bellow. And we know that we have a Bare Fangs from Arsenal that is going to threaten a lot of damage. Cards we draw into are not incredible. Drawing into something off the top of the deck does feel pretty good. Unfortunately, it is a red. We really would have loved for it to be at least a yellow, if not a blue, so that we could hold on to our tunic while Claw Bare Fangsing. And while it is tempting here to play Massacre, 10 with Intimidate is really cool. You know what else is cooler? It's just Claw for 5, Bare Fangs for 10. Threatening a lot of damage this turn. Unlikely to kill Olympia, but Bare Fangs for 10 will get 2 cards out of Olympia. Unfortunately, Bare Fangs for 8 will only get 1. So we will put Olympia 2-1. Olympia puts himself into Reckless range. We don't play Reckless in this deck, so we are going to have to win the old-fashioned way. Trying into another Blood Rush Bellow, like the clumping from our Cast Bones and our Blood Rushes here is pretty insane. Thinking about what Olympia can block with, this Hatchet is coming in for 2. If this last card in Olympia's hand is Blade Runner, similar to our last turn, we will have the opportunity to respond to it. So what we're blocking around is something we cannot respond to. Blade Flurry here would pump this Hatchet up to 4. It would take us to 1, and what going to 1 does for us is it means that our Beast Within kills us. So suddenly our turn changes where we would love to be able to Blood Rush, potentially discard this Beast Within to draw another card, then get to play out E-Strike with Go Again, Mandible Claw, etc. So let's just put Tunic in front of the Hatchet to try and prevent any sort of surprise, hey, you're dead. I don't believe that Olympia has any 1 for 3 reactions. They aren't playing Agile Engagement. They aren't playing any of Dorinthia's 1-for-3s, but we do at least play around Up the Ante, a card that I did not remember exists. And we will get to play out this Blood Rush. So we go to 2, we are still alive, and we do have the potential now to play a Wild Ride, discard this Beast Within, and still not die. Is that what we want to do? The answer is probably not, because what we get to do instead is Mandible Claw for 6, Beast Within for 8. And unless Olympia has exactly 2 3 blocks and 2 4 blocks, he is dead to that. So we can just play safe. We don't need to potentially hit the last cast bones in our deck with Beast Within and kill ourselves. We can just play Beast Within, hopefully kill Olympia, but even if we don't, we arsenal a Wild Ride. Seeing that Olympia seems to have exactly 2 3 blocks and 2 4 blocks means that he stays in the game. Unfortunate for us, and because Olympia has Vigor, we are going to have to block 1 Hatchet. Fortunately, we do have the means to do so. We can put Pack Hunt in front of the Hatchet, open with Wild Ride for 7, hopefully get Go again, hopefully draw into another blue that we get to keep, but even if we do draw a discard of blue, we can still Bare Fangs by pitching Bare Fangs. And that will be enough to put this game away. And in fact, that is what happens. So we get our rep against Olympia now. Seeing that we only barely outvalued Olympia, Warrior is very good. Warrior is a very solid deck into Brute. Like I said, we can expect our Olympias to play like Hatchet's Dorinthia for a while. But once Mistveil drops and he gets access to his new specialization, I think Olympia is going to be the de facto fatigue warrior, and that's going to be a whole different animal to deal with. But for now, at least, we pick up a win, and I think I played the game fairly well here. A bit of a shift in mentality from mid-range into aggro that I don't know is particularly warranted. I would have been happy to have started aggro. I think putting on a little more damage at the start of the game would have mitigated the impact of that Bare Fangs draw discarding a Blood Rush Bellow. Not only did we lose the BRB, but missing that 2 damage on Olympia allowed him to keep an extra card, which he converted to damage very well. So I hope you learned something from this game. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, be sure to take that like button to Pound Town. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback. Again, if you have not already done so, please consider a YouTube subscription. It's free, it helps me out, but no matter what you do, catch me back here tomorrow for more daily FaB gameplay. And until then, take care.